I'm so excited to be here and introducing E-BARQ to you. I know you'll find it such a useful tool for your own horses and something you'll want to share with your clients, and we'll talk about that a bit more later, and also your horse-loving friends. I've put the website address here for you for those of you that are interested in the development of E-BARQ. It's been 8 years in the making, and I was lucky enough to come on board 3 years ago. E-BARQ is not developed in a full lab, with white-coated scientists. Quite the opposite. We formed an expert panel of behaviourists, veterinarians, coaches, horse trainers, welfare specialists, elite riders, and discipline specialists from around the world. This panel helped us form the E-BARQ prototype. This questionnaire went out to 1,300 horse owners. We wanted to include every possible question our expert panel thought might be of interest, and to be honest, I was a bit worried participants would complain about the length of the questionnaire in the feedback box we provided. Well, I needn't have worried. Not only did not one person complain about the length, but they really all had a very positive experience of the E-BARQ project, and most of them took the opportunity to tell us even more about the horses they'd just answered over 200 questions on. You can't say we don't love our horses. From here, after some factor analysis, which is basically working out which questions were important and which we could or should lose or remove, we removed questions that very few people answered or items that didn't fit into one or other of the factors or groups that emerged with the analysis. Following this, we arrived at the final version of E-BARQ that we have today. The survey consists of 96 questions, all of which are rating or multiple choice type questions. There's no need to type in any answers, and the survey can be completed from your computer or your mobile device. As Paul was saying, E-BARQ is a sister project to C-BARQ, and there's also a cat version, Phi-BARQ. Who'd have thought you could have 100 questions on cat behaviour? But there you go, perhaps I'm just not a cat person. At first glance, you might think, okay, cat, dog, horse behaviour. You just change the questions a bit and off you go. But there's a big difference between how we interact with our horse, what we do with our horse, and what can potentially go wrong in these interactions, and our relationship with a cat or a dog. If we think about worst case scenario, what can go wrong when we take the dog to the park? Well, it might pull on the lead, jump on a passerby, or even bite someone. Now, let's take the horse out for a ride. I know, you can think of 100 potential problems even before you get the headstall on, never mind tacking up and riding the horse. There's no doubt that our relationship with our horse is complex and multifaceted. And for this reason, during the factor analysis of the E-BARQ prototype, we found 3 main areas of interest. These were, number 1, behaviour, being the sorts of behaviours that the horse does on its own. Think of it like personality. The next was equitation. These were the behaviours that related to how the horse reacted when handled or ridden. And that's only for those horses that were ridden. The final factor is equipment and management. This, as you will have guessed, is about the tack we use with our horses and how the horse is managed on a day-to-day basis, including housing, feeding, and how often the horse is interacting with people. One of the main aims of E-BARQ is to identify behaviours that may be predictive of future undesirable or dangerous behaviours. For example, wouldn't it be good to know if horses that showed certain behaviours, such as pulling back when tired as youngsters, were more likely to rear under saddle, or horses that got progressively worse over time at pulling on the lead when leading were more likely to bolt later when under saddle. This knowledge would allow for early intervention, not only massively improving rider and handler safety, but most likely also improving that horse's welfare in the future, because, as we know, the two go hand in hand. The sad fact is, in so many ways, horse welfare lags depressingly far behind other companion animals. And while horses are not always defined as companion animals, we all know that that's exactly what they are. They make our lives richer and so much more enjoyable just from their very presence. I can understand why it's sometimes hard for us as riders or trainers to fail to see that our practices are not best serving the horse. I was fortunate enough to be involved in a noseband tightness study in 2016 where we looked at nosebands of various tightness. I was manning the video camera, and by just watching the horses it was impossible to say that there was any difference between the responses during the different levels of tightness. However, later when we downloaded the data, we looked at the small behaviours such as licking, chewing and swallowing, and also the heart rate results, and the changes were significant indeed. Many of the horses on the tightest fitting didn't swallow at all for the entire 10 minutes of treatment. Now, as riders, we wouldn't notice this. Who notices how often their horse swallows normally? But particularly when coupled with the fact that dressage riders are rewarded for horses with quiet mouths and visible saliva, it's important that we know what's happening under the bonnet, so to speak. Horses are hardwired to hide pain and distress because in the wild it makes them vulnerable to attack. Prey animals, such as dogs on the other hand, will cry and whimper at the slightest thing. You'd think my puppy was going to die when I put a collar on her. Honestly, I have never seen such a fuss. So it's up to us to try harder with our horses because eventually such distress, if left unresolved, will influence their behaviour. Given that, the main difference between E-BARQ and the other BARQ projects as data collection tools is that E-BARQ is a longitudinal study. While it's nice to have a snapshot of how your horse is behaving today, it's even better to be able to monitor your progress over time. By completing an E-BARQ survey every 6 months, you'll be able to see how changes in your training and management are reflected in behaviour, a tremendously valuable tool for coaches, trainers, and all horse owners. As you can see, the survey is divided into 2 sections. We collect detailed horse and owner demographics. These include the horse's age, breed, colour and height, as you would expect, but also details of the age the horse was first handled and started under saddle, its main riding discipline where appropriate, and so on. For owners' demographics, we include the owner's riding and handling experience, the length of time they've been around horses, and so on. Participants then move on to the training, management and behaviour questions, which make up the bulk of the survey. Of course, not all horses stay in one home their entire lives, and the exit survey asks respondents about the reasons a horse is no longer with them. This will provide useful information on why horses are changing homes and, in the future, help us to identify elements that might predict a horse having an unsettled life with ever-changing homes. Now I want to take you quickly through the process of getting your E-BARQ results. If you go to the ebarq.org page, you'll find a little bit about the development of E-BARQ, and you can click on Take E-BARQ Now, and you'll come through to this page. You'll need to create an account by entering your name and email and your choice of passwords. Just a quick note here. Your information is both private and secure with E-BARQ, and any resulting studies using the E-BARQ data will be looking at groups of horses and never individual animals. Also, there's no charge associated with using E-BARQ. Once inside, you'll find yourself on the My Profile page. You can edit your details here and upload a selfie, but don't forget to press Submit when you're finished. Also on this page, and more importantly of course, you can add a new horse. This will give you a pop-up box where you can add the horse. The only thing you need to get started here is the horse's name. All of the other items can be added later if you wish. However, if you do add a year of birth, just be aware that that really does mean a year and not a date, as the system can only accept 4 numbers, such as 2012, meaning 2012. If you want to upload photographs now, or decide to do that later, simply click on the green horse and you'll be walked through the process. The maximum upload limit here is 5 megabytes. So once you've entered your horse's name, press submit and your horse's profile will appear. Next, click Take E-BARQ Now and you'll see all of your registered horses on this page. You can see I've got 3 horses here. Some I have photos for and others not, and it looks like I should update some of those photos too, which I can do at any time. Horses that have not yet taken an E-BARQ will have a green reminder button above their profile. Click that and it will take you through to the E-BARQ questionnaire. You can see that all 3 of mine are due for another E-BARQ. Now, I mentioned earlier that the survey has 96 questions, and it takes most people between 20 and 30 minutes to complete. Don't worry if you can't do it all in one sitting. The system will remember where you were in the survey and take you straight back to that question, even if you log out of both sites. Next time you come back to Take E-BARQ, press Take E-BARQ again. Just go to that green notification above your horse, click it again, and you'll be back in the survey at exactly the same place. The survey will keep you in that place for 1 week, after which it will no longer be accessible. On completion of the survey, click the E-BARQ results. The survey results may take up to 10 minutes to be calculated, but they'll show up here. If you navigate away from the page, try refreshing it when you return to see if your results are there. Let's take a closer look at the results graph. The dark green score is Rivero's results for his most recent E-BARQ test, and the cream colour represents the population. You can quickly see that this horse scores poorly on human, social and non-human social confidence, and that's really good to know because it gives me as his owner a place to focus my work and to make his life easier and my riding safer. When I come back, which looks like it should be done now, to do another E-BARQ, I'm going to hope to see big improvements here. I can also see that he's slightly below average on working compliance, and I've been trying to make my training more interesting and fun for him to further engage him with learning. I now want to take you through what each of these categories mean. You will find this information on the frequently asked questions page. First of all, trainability. This is how your horse learns from combined reinforcement, so positive reinforcement and pressure release. Next, rideability. Of course, this only applies to the horses that have been ridden or driven in the past 6 months, and it's about your horse's responsiveness to cues from the saddle or while being driven. If your horse is easier to ride, you get a higher score. Boldness is your horse's reaction to the unfamiliar or the unexpected. A very reactive or spooky horse will have a low score. Handling compliance, how willing your horse is to be handled. A high score indicates a horse that is unreactive when handled. Working compliance, how willing your horse is to be worked. A high score indicates a horse that is happy to be worked. Easy to stop, this indicates that the horse is obedient to stop signals and does not run or pull through the handler or rider. A high score indicating a horse that's easy to stop. Forward going, this indicates a horse that moves forward when signaled to do so, not a horse that moves too fast or moves when not signaled. A high score indicates the horse that doesn't move back or rear when signaled to move forward. Human social confidence. How your horse behaves when approached. A confident horse will have a high score on this item. Non-human social confidence is how your horse reacts to other horses and other animals. Novel object confidence indicates how reactive your horse is to novel or new objects. Touch sensitivity. This means how reactive your horse is to touch, including saddling, and a high score indicates your horse is happy with these procedures, whereas a low score indicates your horse might be oversensitive to touch. Easy to load. This covers loading and unloading, so a high score indicates a horse that loads and unloads easily. And finally, independence. This measures how your horse reacts when alone. A high score indicates a horse that is calm when alone. Note that in all cases, a high score is what we are looking for, a sign of positive and safe behaviours. For example, touch sensitivity. A high score means that the horse is where you want it to be, and a low score suggests that your horse is oversensitive to touch. Okay, I've been saving the best for last, and now I want to talk to you about E-BARQ groups. This is a very exciting development, and I know that the coaches and trainers amongst you are going to be particularly excited about this. You can now form your own private E-BARQ group. To form a group, you'll need to have at least 10 potential members, and you simply complete the form here on your profile page, and you'll be sent your group code. Once you have the code, all of your group members can enter that on their E-BARQ profiles, and you, as the administrator, will be able to see all of their results, and group members will be able to see how their horse compares to the group average, as well as the population as a whole. Of course, only group admins can see the other members' individual results, and they will appear as a drop-down menu on the admins page. Riding clubs in Australia are very excited about this feature, as it will allow their instructors to know in advance if a horse in their group might pose a problem during an event or a lesson. For example, knowing that a horse is scored poorly on easy to stop might mean that the instructor decides not to put that horse at the front of the ride. With the E-BARQ groups function, your clients will be able to see on their results graph how their horse compares to the group average, and how both the group average and their horse compares to the thousands of horses already in the E-BARQ population. E-BARQ participants can be in as many groups as they like, and we are already finding owners reaping the benefits of being in a breed group, a discipline-specific group, as well as their individual coaching groups. Rider safety is of paramount importance, and we know that one of the biggest risks to horse welfare is problem behaviour. E-BARQ, being a longitudinal study, will reveal training, management and behavioural red flags that become predictors of undesirable behaviours and thus compromise rider safety and horse welfare. An example here might be the age of gelding. It is possible that the age at which a horse is gelded can predict how it might behave in the future. E-BARQ is a global tool and available to all horse owners and caregivers, regardless of the horse's breed, size, age, whether it's a working horse, a ridden horse, a non-ridden horse, a driven horse. It's available to all horses, and it's also completely free to use. So pop along to ebarq.org and we'll see you there.